I mean, you slid in my DMs.
I mean, you opened the door for me.
You flew me out to Dubai.
I did do that.
I retired you last year.
You did do that.
Why do you think that people are getting married less and less?
Marriage rates are going down and divorce rates are going up.
Bet. Well, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. A man can be 50 years old and go date a woman in her 30s, you know?
Sure. Or 20. You know how many men and women will say, well, I'm gonna flirt with him anyway. Ain't like that's his wife.
I think fear of commitment is a huge issue.
I was just afraid of failure. Did you have a fear of marriage with me? I never saw what marriage actually looked like and what that could be.
Someone has to break the cycle. Who are you for it to not be you?
But one thing remains true, which is people don't want to be alone. Just because you didn't see it, just because that wasn't your parents' portion doesn't mean that it's not your portion.
Don't let the world fool you. There's really nothing out there. There's nothing like coming home.
Everybody
to
come
someone
with
that you
they
love.
crap.
I truly do believe that God will put that person in your life at the right time.
Find your wife, build your life.
We don't believe that the perfect marriage exists.
Facts, but intentional ones do.
And over the years,
We've learned that it takes more than just love to build a life together.
this is the show where we share what's worked for us.
This is
The
Bailey way.
Fewer people are getting married more and more.
Yes.
It's funny, I almost said less and less, but fewer people are getting married more and more. The divorce rate is climbing. I'm interested to know why. We got to dive into this conversation. Yeah. Do you agree with that? Do you feel like?
Yeah,
That's
marriage
people
rates are going down and divorce rates are going up.
Bet. Well, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
This is the Bailey way. It's interesting because it's 2026 and it feels like, at least in my friend group, and I know in your friend group because we have a lot of the same friends, but it feels like people want to be with somebody. They want commitment. They want somebody to do life with, but it seems like the marriage rate is going in the opposite direction. Like people are getting married less. Let's talk about why. Why do you think that people are getting married less and less?
I think it's so many factors that we do not have enough time for in this podcast. But I think what comes to mind initially is marriage used to be you graduate high school and basically the next step is to get married. It was a starting point for life. You build this life with somebody together. The wife has her role, the man has her role, and you kind of build accordingly. His role. And now I think marriage is more of like a capstone. Like, let me get my life together. Let me build out these things I want to do. Let me experience life. Let me do all these things on my own. And then I'll settle down and get married. So I think that whole concept of settling down feels like something people want to do later in life.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. But I read this book, and you remember when I read it, because every night you would come to bed and I would be like, babe, I got to tell you about this. But the two-parent privilege really hits on all of the things that are driving marriage rates down, and especially in the Black community. And obviously we talk about like the feminist movement and how it changed so many things for women, right? They're going to school more. They have more access to careers, finances. They are able to have a lot more independence now. And that impacts the marriageability of men, because what women would once rely on men for and need to get married to have a man to be able to support her financially so she could take care of the home and the children. Men aren't necessarily needed for that anymore. And I think that because women are putting themselves in better financial situations, especially when it comes to their careers, now their standards are going up because they can provide such a great life for themselves that they don't rely on a man to do that anymore. So, and we see this a lot with my single girlfriends. A lot of them do very well financially.
Yeah.
And it makes it harder for them to find a man because they want somebody that can provide at least meet them where they are.
At that level.
But ideally be able to provide more. But unfortunately, and you can probably speak to this more than I can, the trends are not the same for men. I think where women have so many more opportunities, men actually have less. They're going to college at lower rates. Blue collar jobs are down, which are typically the jobs that men would work to be able to provide for their families.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a number of things, some that we can control and some that we can't.
Yeah.
But I think that, it makes sense to me why marriage rates are down, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think, and it's unfortunate, obviously, because when I think about marriage, I think about just the institution of love and how we're supposed to grow together as a team, as a partnership. But I do understand, like, before we were born, marriage was a way of life to survive.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
provide, to do these things. And it was a strategic move, like we talked about. But when I think about why the marriage rate is down now as well, there's that, right? There's a component of, obviously, women succeeding at a much higher rate than men. I think I just read a study the other day on how, like, this is the first time in history where getting a college degree does not land you a job more than, or does not help you build wealth more than being an entrepreneur. Right. So even men that are going to school, and getting these degrees, a lot of people are not even using their college degrees. Right. And women are typically choosing college degrees that are more effective in the workplace. Nurse practitioner, marketing, accountants, doctors. Look, right. And so it's interesting, but I do think there's a historical component to it as well, right? Especially in the Black community. When you look at during the 1960s and 1970s, when you had the government working against the Black family, right? And so we talk about, government assistance and what that looked like at that time. It really looked like the government was encouraging women to not have the man in the house, to not take care of the children so that the government can provide assistance. In fact, they would go to the homes of Black people to take audit, to make sure that there wasn't a man in the home. And if there was a man in the home, then they would take away their government assistance. So you're not getting things like food stamps. You're not getting government assistance. You're not getting that aid. And so a lot of times the men would not be in the home. The other thing is global industrialization. So they took a lot of, like we talked about, those blue collar jobs. They took a lot of that work from the States. And now, we're outsourcing in China. We're outsourcing in a lot of these other, countries and different things like that. And so you see jobs like GNC and car dealerships taking their jobs away, which is what Black men and men of minority typically would go in and they would do well at a lot of these factories and these manufacturing jobs. And so you take that away, right? And now you introduce the war on drugs. And so now you're flooding these neighborhoods with drugs and the crime rate is going through the roof. Why? Because there is less opportunities for Black men to not only compete in the workspace, but also school. So now you're trying to survive. And so I think it starts there as well, right? Like us just always being in survival mode, trying to figure out how we're not only going to provide for our family, but just provide a life in general, right? You take that and you throw on the cultural pressures on it, right? The rise of hip hop in the late the 1980s, the 1990s, where we're now looking at women in a different light. It's more sexually appealing. It's more, we're talking about independence and different things like that. So there's a cultural shift. So I feel that there are so many different things that have gone into, the marriage rate being what it is right now. But one thing remains true, which is people don't want to be alone. They want companionship. They want a union with somebody. They want to build a life with somebody. But right now we're trying to figure out, well, how do we do it? You know what I mean?
And I think, like, when you really sit down, because I think people are aware of all of those things, especially in the Black community. But when you sit down and you really look at things and how kind of intentional it is, it's like, how do you stall a culture? You start by attacking the family.
That's a fact.
And you look at the factors that you just talked about that unfortunately are impacting specifically Black men. And I think that's such a core piece of the Black family. And when you look at the marriage rate specifically in our culture in the 60s, when we were going through, segregation and racism and all those things, marriage rates were still 60%. Today they're 30 and they're still declining. So I think that, we have an uphill battle, and it is unfortunately harder for us to not only get married, but stay married than it is for any other culture.
And I think the other thing too now is we talk about the fear, of marriage.
Yeah.
Right. I know for a fact for me, I knew that I wanted to build a life with you. I knew that I wanted to have, because I didn't come from that. Whereas you came from a two-parent household, and you've always known you wanted to be married.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people have fear around getting married, whether it's because they've seen their parents get divorced multiple times, or they don't want to fail, right?
Yeah.
Or they're afraid of marrying the wrong person. How do we combat against that? How do we deal with the fear of getting married? What does that look like? And how do you convince somebody that marriage is actually worth it? Because now a lot of people are going into cohabitation.
Yeah.
Right? Where they just like, look, we can do life together. We just don't need to get married. So how do we get after the fear behind marriage?
I think it starts with yourself, because I think actually a lot of the fear is actually more internal. I think you have a lot of men and women who feel like they're not ready. And so I think that outwardly looks like fear of commitment. It looks like fear of making the wrong decision. Whereas, I think that internally, it really is like, do I have it all together for this person? Am I good enough for this person? What if something happens and, I decide that I want somebody else, or I want something else? I think social media doesn't help with that. I think it adds to the fear, because we think we have so many options. Whereas before, you probably grow up in the same town as somebody, the pool is smaller, and you kind of...
High school sweethearts.
Yeah, high school sweethearts, and the options feel like they're few. You're not looking at people all around the world and wanting what they have, or feeling like, now that I've come up on some money, I could probably do a little better.
Yeah.
So I think that there's so many factors that have us kind of looking everywhere else than just looking inwardly at what we actually want and building with the person that's in front of us. But I think fear of commitment is a huge issue.
Yeah. I would agree. I think fear, especially for men, because we feel like, we got all these options.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I would say this applies to everybody, but especially us. We feel like we got a bunch of options. We feel like, if we get with this person, what if I see something that looks better?
Right.
Or whatever the case may be. But I think I always go back to, if you find somebody that is adding value to your life and that you can see yourself doing life with, then go ahead and grow with that person. Go ahead and lock it down, because at the end of the day, you're going to go through something with whoever you end up. It don't matter. You can end up with who you think is the most beautiful person in the world. There is going to be a point in your marriage, and within a year or 2 or 10 or 5 or 15, where you don't think that person is that beautiful because of what y'all are going through.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And the novelty of that wears off. It fades. Like,
it does fade.
You're going to want something more.
Yeah. You want, and that's the thing. And so, but I do think fear is a major contributor, especially millennials and Gen Z, right? We're in this mindset of independence. We're in this mindset of, I can do it all by myself.
Yeah.
But I even have friends right now who have crushed it. They are super successful on paper. They got the degrees, they got the doctor this, they got the this, all these things, the money. But the one thing that they wish they had, they always go back to, is, I wish I had somebody to do this with.
Yeah. And
so it's funny how like the marriage rate is going down, but we just still want to be unified with somebody. You know what I mean?
And I think that fear for our generation goes beyond just marriages too. Like, you have our parents' generation who would find a job at 18 and they would retire in that same job. Yeah. They would buy a house and they would stay in that house until they probably still live in that house, So I think that there is a huge shift in just the commitment. And I think it also comes down to that instant gratification and us always wanting something new too. We want the new thing, the shiny thing. Yeah. And I think there is, I think that we have to get back to just being happy and content with what is in front of us too, and not always reaching for the next thing. So I don't even think it's just strictly marriage and relationships where our generation has those fears. I think it's kind of all around. We kind of just want to hop to the next thing. Yeah. And getting married and the thought of being with one person can be scary. I understand that if you've grown up, seeing something else and then chasing that.
But what's interesting, what I was reading is it's not necessarily, and this caught me by surprise, divorce rate right now, even though it's still pretty high, it is at an all-time low. So people are getting married less, but also they're getting divorced less. And it seems like the divorce rate is going up because it's high. It's around like 40%, right? But people are not getting divorced as much as they were in the 80s. So I think we're entering into a time where people are valuing, and I think it probably has to do a little bit more with like, okay, people are getting married later in the game. So now you got your degree, you got your money, you got your house, you done found somebody. So you're thinking about things a little bit better. Whereas like you and I, we got married when we were kids. Like we were 22. And so, our amygdala and our frontal lobes were still growing and developing. So it's not like we could really tell what was going to end up happening 5 or 10 years from then. But I think people now are getting married. I think the average marriage rate for men is 30 and then for women is 28. By that age, you're more mature. You know what I'm saying? And so I do think that marriage is slightly just being redefined, not necessarily like obsolete. I think we are just a little bit slower to it, a little bit more intentional about it, but it's being redefined. So let me ask you this question. With it being redefined, do you think the options are shrinking, especially for like women and men? I guess you could speak for women. Do you feel like the options are shrinking and that's why maybe women are getting married less or whatever the case may be, or married later?
I definitely feel like there is a smaller pool for women to select from.
Yeah, I can agree. I think it's a larger pool for men.
Yeah, I think men have a much larger pool because they aren't looking for a lot of the things that women are looking for. A man can be 50 years old and go date a woman in her 30s,
True. Or 20s.
Or even in her 20s. Whereas for a woman, like, you want a man that's older than you. You want a man that's taller than you. You want a man that makes more money than you. Like, for men, if you're coming in, and especially if you're ready to provide and be a good husband, the options are plentiful. Like, you're going to have some options out there, and the pool is just larger. I think women, especially successful women, the pool is small. And then add on top of that, a lot of my friends are Black. They want to date a Black man. Now your pool is really small. So yeah, I definitely think for women, the options are fewer, but there is hope in that divorce rates are also declining, So I think by women being more intentional when they do find the right person, which is a hard thing to do, I think it's lasting longer. And I also think that, they're appreciating it more too, because they go through, all of these dates and all of these years of thinking they found somebody and being discouraged. And then they finally get it. And they're just so happy that they're willing to, put in the work and just appreciate having someone to come home to.
They on that, you ain't going nowhere by it. Like, we gonna make this happen. Did you have a fear, when we talk about like fear of getting married, did you have a fear of marriage with me? Like, how did you approach that? Were there any concerns or fears?
No, my fears were us not getting married. My fears were us not getting married. I think, but I also saw it with my parents. Like, they've been together since 7th grade. So for me, that's how you're supposed to do things. And like, even being married, it's never like, divorce is not even on the table. It's like, we're going to work through whatever comes our way, and we have. But I think for women, it's a lot easier to say that. I will put the question back on you, especially being as young as we were, knowing your trajectory and the potential that you had. Did you have any fears about getting married so young?
Yeah, I definitely had fear, but I wasn't necessarily like afraid to get married. I was just afraid of failure. So I felt like I was very sure of us getting married. Like I even when I asked your dad, I was just like, I know this is what I want. I'm gonna take care of her. Like I got my my plan. I got my vision. I want to make this happen. But since I came from a childhood where one marriage wasn't modeled in my household, actually, it was weird to have a man in the house. Like it was always my mom. And so I never saw it growing up. I never saw what marriage actually looked like and what that could be. And then on top of that, I saw a lot of failed relationships in general growing up. And so to have seen, to assume that I was going to have a successful one that makes it past 6 months, makes it past a year, makes it past 2 years. I didn't share this with you, but I was worried about that. Like, I was like, I don't know if this is going to, last. And I know that's a real fear for a lot of men. Like, like what's going to happen? Like, is this going to work? I don't want to fail. I don't want to be the type of person that's going out and getting married and then divorced and then married again. I don't want to have that, right?
Especially when you add kids into the picture.
Yeah, add kids and stuff like that. So I definitely had a fear early on, but I also realized once we got married, we were so in lockstep with one another. I was like, we're good. Like, we've had some crazy arguments and disagreements. We've gone through some stuff. We've thrown the divorce word around. I don't think either one of us ever meant it, right? But I knew afterwards we were good, but I definitely had fear, and I definitely can understand why people would be concerned about getting married. We weren't thinking about like, oh, how much money is this going to cost if we get a divorce? I used to read like, different things. It's cheaper to keep her and all these other things.
That was the name of my mom. My mom and dad had a boat, and that was the name of their boat.
Right. That's
cheaper to keep her.
Cheaper to keep it, Lord Jesus.
And then it said, just saying.
Just saying. Lord, have mercy.
But I guess, what would you say to men or even women that are watching this podcast and they want marriage, they want to break the cycle, they want to create a family, but they've never seen it done. And so that's where that fear comes from. They don't even necessarily have a fear of commitment. They just have a fear of never having seen a successful one before.
I don't think you have to see what you want in order for it to be achievable, right? There's a lot of examples out there of folks succeeding in things that they're the first person in their family to make it happen, whether they're the first person to graduate, buy a house, get a certain degree or a certain level of degree, right? So we see that all the time. But the other thing is we all should know that there is somebody out there for us, right? Like, you deserve love, you deserve commitment, you deserve a life partner. And just because you didn't see it, just because that wasn't your parents' portion doesn't mean that it's not your portion. You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like don't rob yourself of the opportunity to have somebody to do life with because you haven't seen it happen in your past. That's the reason. There's a reason it's called the past. It's not forward. It's what is behind you. Also, I'm real big on ending generational patterns. Real big on ending generational curses in marriage and finances and success and faith. Like, I'm real big on that because I will never want my children or my bloodline that continues from this point to experience what I experienced in the past. So I would say to anybody who's feeling that fear of doing something and failing at it because they've never seen it accomplished before, do it anyway.
And I think someone has to break the cycle. And who are you for it to not be you? I mean, all it takes, as hard as it is, and not to simplify it, but all it takes is for you to make the decision that you want something different. And you don't have to see it to be able to become it. Someone has to be the first one to do it.
Somebody got to be first.
So why not you?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's, we talk about, I want to get your opinion on this because I definitely have an opinion on it. In fact, I'll ask you, what do you think about the pros and cons, or I won't say the pros and cons. What would you think? What do you think about cohabitation and marriage? Is cohabitation like the new thing? Is it good? Should we be embracing that? Or do you think we should be embracing marriage more? And why?
I do believe this is probably very untraditional, but I do think that you should live with the person when you know that you're committed and your relationship is going towards marriage. Personally, that's the way that we did it. But I think that
with the intent to marry.
That's what I was just about to say. It has to be with the intent to marry. I wouldn't stop at just cohabitating together. Like, it has to be moving towards marriage. And I also think for women especially, there are certain benefits that you have to reserve for a man for when you are his wife. Like, don't be out here washing his dirty underwear before he puts a ring on your finger. Don't be out here making him every meal before he puts a ring on your finger. Like, I just think that marriage has to come with a certain level of access to both men and women, you know? For men, I would say, don't be paying her bills until she's your wife. Like, there are just certain things that I think you reserve for that commitment and that, like, special union that is marriage. So when we talk about cohabitating, you know, I think that that's just, you're giving all the benefits to marriage without the commitment, you know? So I don't believe in that. But I do believe in, make sure you live together before you get married and get over all of those, you know, challenges that would come.
So what do you say about the people who say marriage is just a piece of paper, though? Like, it's just a legally binding document?
I think that they don't understand, and I always go back to this, the biblical purpose of marriage. I think that in order to have a marriage the way that it is intended to be, my opinion is you have to understand what God wants for you as a wife, who he wants you to be as a husband and as a wife. So when you say marriage is just a piece of paper, I guess my question back to them would be where they stand in their relationship with God. Because I think when you understand what God intended it to be, then you know that it's much more than a piece of paper, and you know that it's actually a spiritual journey that you're on with your spouse.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that 100%. And I also think that talking about cohabitation versus marriage, I think that, to your point, I agree that you should definitely, this is what I think. You should, this is not biblical.
You should shack up.
You should shack up. That's my opinion. This could change. I can evolve. But, you know, it was good for us to see what it was like before we got married. But yeah. I do think it has to be with the intent to marry. Here's the thing that you got to understand about marriage. And this is where it becomes incredibly beneficial. One, for tax purposes, it is really, really, really beneficial. Two, for health purposes. When you are married to somebody, you are more likely, in fact, there are studies on this, you are more likely to go to the doctor. You're more likely to take care of yourself, right? If something were to happen to you, if you're just my girl, and you're just somebody I'm cohabitating with, but yet we done built this whole life together. We got cars and businesses. We got this house together. We got all these things together. If something were to happen to me, guess what? Even the fact that I don't even talk to my mom, you don't get to decide a darn thing when it comes to what happens with my remains, with my money, with my anything. Why? Because you're not my next of kin.
Yeah.
You're not. So there's so many other things that go into this that we don't think about. Once you decide that this person is the person you want to do life with, and y'all build that trust within one another, and you allow yourself to trust that person, then getting married is actually beneficial to you.
Yeah.
Biblically and literally, right? Yeah. Like just understanding that, like for example, when it came to us buying our home, 2 incomes on one piece of paper looks better than 1 income on a piece of paper in order for us to get that home loan, right?
Yeah.
And so just thinking about like what it does for your life strategically, it takes it to a whole nother level. And so cohabitating, you may say, well, I don't need all that. I got all my stuff to the side. I just need somebody to whatever. You're not going to get the full benefits. No. Also, you know how many men and women will say, well, I'm going to flirt with him anyway. Ain't like that's his wife. It ain't like, you know, that's her man, whatever the case may be. People will still try you. Now, I know they'll still try, you know, in the marriage, but they're more likely to try if that man ain't married. You know what I'm saying? Because they may see, hey, look, you know.
I think my question, too, for people that do kind of do the cohabitation thing is, what is stopping you from getting married? I think that it's, again, going back to that fear of, okay, let's like put our toes in the water, but not go all the way in just in case.
Right.
Just in case I see something out and that looks a little better, it's easy for me to slide.
Yeah.
You know, or just in case we get in a really bad argument and I decide I'm not doing this with you anymore.
Right.
Marriage is a commitment, and I think that that's the step that you take when you genuinely love the person and want to build with them. I would almost feel like if someone was okay with cohabitating with me, that they like the benefits of being with you, but not necessarily enough to commit to you.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
No, I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that. And I think the other thing is you never want to be in a situation, right? And we know people that have gone through this, right? To where you succeed at something and you don't have anybody to share it with.
Yeah.
You fail in something and you don't have anybody to share it with, right? You got to call people that have their person, they have their relationship, but you don't have anybody. And so, yes, they may be your girlfriend or boyfriend, but it's different when you have a spouse, right? And y'all create a family together, you know what I'm saying? And a legacy. And so I think the benefits of marriage is enormous, but I also think I want to provide a little hope in this area. I think that people are just being more intentional about who they marry nowadays. I think it's not that we're marriage is obsolete. I think we're just being mindful. There's fear there. There's intention there. It's taking a little bit longer, right? In the 60s, you're married at 18, 17 years old. Now it's 30 and 28.
Yep.
And so
I think a lot of that fear too, I think women have a clock. And so I think there'll be a lot of women watching this that feel like it's good to instill hope in them, because women are in their 30s, you know, they're successful and they're feeling like, oh my God, like I need to freeze my eggs. I don't have a husband yet. I want to have kids. I have friends who have been very anti-marriage their whole 20s. They've traveled the world. They've, you know, partied, done all these crazy things. Everybody, in my opinion, gets to a point where they just want to love somebody. And they want to be loved in return.
Right.
And you made this point earlier, and it's so true. There is somebody for everybody. And I truly do believe that God will put that person in your life at the right time. And there's,
you slid in my DMs.
you opened the door for me.
You flew me out to Dubai.
I did do that.
I retired you last year.
You did do that. But yeah, there is someone out there for everybody. I think in God's time, you will find the person for you. I think it takes patience, it takes humility, it takes discernment, all of the things to be able to find that person for you. But I truly do believe that at some point, you know, all of the outside stuff gets old and you're like, I just want someone to come home to.
I love that. I love that. Well, final points to be made. What would you say to the women out there who they feel like they found their person, but they're scared to do it. They're scared to take the jump, or they have somebody who might have 90% of what they're looking for, but there's this one thing that they just can't get over, or whatever the case may be. What's your advice to them?
I would say that nobody is going to be perfect for you. Just like you're not going to be perfect for anybody either. But I think we've all seen how it is outside, and there's nothing out there. So lock it down with the person that, you know, has the things that you want. And I always say this, go back to the things that God wants for you. Like, don't get so caught up on the superficial stuff. He has to be this tall. Attraction should be there, but go back to the things that are really going to make you feel good in a relationship, and ultimately somebody that you can just build with.
Absolutely. And I'll say to the fellas, if you find a woman, bro, that she is selfless, she's caring, she is emotionally intelligent, she's a listener, she brings you peace, that is more than enough to grow from. You know what I'm saying? Don't get caught up in the idea that, you know, what if I'm missing out on something else? There's all these options out here and all this other stuff. Time goes by quick. You know, it's like yesterday we were 20, today we are 30. You know what I'm saying? It is moving by
I'm still
fast.
25.
You are, okay, cool, if you want to believe that. But yeah, man, lock it down, make it happen, and build your life. I love our good friend Arvia Few. She always says, find your wife and build your life. And I love that, because that's how we, especially as men, we are created to create, to connect, and to produce. And that connection piece and that creation piece happens when we find our person to do it with. And so,
and don't let the world fool you. Like, there's really nothing out there. There's nothing like coming.
Everybody come with their craft. Yeah, man. Yeah. Social media included. That's why, like, we're having these real open and honest conversations, because I love that we post our travel and what we do. And you always talk about how, you got a man that retired you and stuff like that or whatever. But we balance that with the real conversations of this took work.
Yeah.
This took, patience and building and all that stuff. And we're just getting, we're 31 years old. We still got a whole lifetime ahead of us.
Yeah.
And so, I love that we can talk about conversations like this in an authentic and transparent way. That way people know, like, social media ain't what it's all hyped up to be.
Yeah.
You still got to go live your real life once you press the record button and stop button on that phone. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, find your wife and build your life. Let's get it.